Hello everyone. Today in this lecture session, let's discuss about one very important topic in medicinal chemistry, that is adrenergic agonists. So in the previous lectures we have seen how actually neurotransmission happens in case of sympathetic nerves, especially adrenergic nerves, where the neurotransmitter is synthesized and then it is stored and then released, and then it shows activity at their specific receptors and how the signal is terminated. Let's say if we wanted to achieve anti-adrenergic activity, then where exactly the sites of action, where exactly we can modify the receptor activity. Let's see one by one. So one of the first and foremost step where we can block adrenergic neurotransmission is synthesis of neurotransmitter. The second one is the storage of neurotransmitter in vesicles. The third one is its release. So these are the three indirect mechanisms that we have to achieve anti-adrenergic activity. And then obviously we can have a molecule which can reverse or inhibit their adrenergic receptors. So these are the four ways how we can achieve the anti-adrenergic activity. So scientists have synthesized several molecules as an adrenergic antagonists. And now let's see their classification. In case of anti-adrenergic drugs, we have basically broadly four types of drugs are there. One is adrenergic receptor antagonists, drugs inhibiting norepinephrine synthesis, drugs inhibiting norepinephrine storage, drugs inhibiting norepinephrine release. So in the drugs inhibiting norepinephrine category, we have methyl dopa and carbidopa. These are the two examples we have. Reserpine is a very old molecule in use. Reserpine's mechanism is drugs inhibiting. It inhibits norepinephrine storage in the vesicle. And drugs inhibiting norepinephrine release are bretylium and guanethidine. So when we come back to adrenergic receptor antagonists, we have again three classifications are there. One is specific inhibitors, alpha receptor specific inhibitor and beta receptor antagonists, and non-selective inhibitors, where in alpha beta receptor non-selective antagonists labetalol and medroxylol. These are the two examples. Now let's see the alpha receptor antagonists. So here again we have two classifications, two classes of drugs are there. One is non-selective, because in case of alpha receptor we have two types of receptors are there, alpha 1 receptor and alpha 2 receptor. So non-selective blocker, there we have phenoxybenzamine, phentolamine and tolazolines are there. In selective again we have two broad classes are there. One is alpha 1 selective and alpha 2 selective. So in alpha 1 selective we have prazosin, terazosin and doxazosin. In alpha 2 receptor we have one natural product, that is yohimbine. Let's see in case of beta antagonists again, because in case of beta we again have two receptors, established receptors are there, beta 1 receptor and beta 2 receptors are there. In non-selective category we have a propranolol, nadolol, timolol. These are all primitive beta blockers, and because those which were discovered in the beginning. In case of selective we have again beta 1 selective and beta 2 selective are there. In beta 2 selective anti-adrenergic agents we have metoprolol, atenolol, acebutol and esmolol. These are the popular drugs that we have in this category. In beta 2 selective we have butoxamine. So friends, this is the way how we can classify anti-adrenergic agents. In these, let's see some of the examples. Drugs inhibiting norepinephrine synthesis. Here we have two drugs, methyl dopa and carbidopa. Methyl dopa and carbidopa. What is the difference between this and dopa? Here we have a methyl group Here we have a methyl group and a hydrogen unit. Instead of simple amine, we have hydrogen unit. So whenever we have methyl group alpha to this nitrogen, that definitely inhibits corresponding enzyme. So here, which enzyme it is inhibiting? Methyl dopa inhibits dopa decarboxylase and blocks synthesis of epinephrine. But the methyl dopa gets converted to alpha methyl norepinephrine, which is a very good alpha 2 adrenergic agonist. One of the function of alpha 2 adrenergic agonist is a blockade of release of epinephrine. That is what we have seen in the mechanism of adrenergic receptor. Just now we have seen that. So in this way, methyl dopa is blocking biosynthesis of epinephrine as well as release of epinephrine. It is used for management of hypertension. Okay, carbidopa, it inhibits dopa decarboxylase and blocks synthesis of epinephrine. It is used in treatment of Parkinson's disease. In the next category, drugs inhibiting norepinephrine storage, we have reserpine. What it does, so this is the structure of reserpine. It inhibits transportation of dopamine into storage vehicles, because dopamine storage transporter is there, so which helps in the transport of dopamine that is synthesized in the cytosol into vesicle. So within the vesicle, dopamine is converted into epinephrine. So that transportation process is blocked, so that slowly there will be depletion of neurotransmitter. And this is used for management of hypertension. This was used earlier. The last one is beryllium and guanethidine under the category drugs inhibiting norepinephrine release. So this is the structure of a beryllium. It blocks release of norepinephrine from nerve terminal. Okay, so exocytosis part is actually blocked by beryllium. It also blocks potassium ion channels. It is used as emergency medicine in ventricular tachycardia and fibrillation, atrial fibrillation. In case of guanethidine, it has a unique mechanism. It replaces norepinephrine in the vesicles and gradually depletes its levels. It is used for the treatment of hypertension, which is non-responsive to other agents. Okay, so friends, this is the way how we have different category drugs in antiadrenergic category. So let's see in detail on beta adrenergic agonists in their beta 1 blockers. So the evolution of beta adrenergic antagonists is very interesting. Isoproterenol, as you all knew, is a very good beta agonist. It's not an antagonist, it's an agonist. So in the SIR of epinephrine, scientists found that increase in bulk on nitrogen increased beta selective activity. So this is what made scientists to synthesize several of these derivatives. So one of the derivatives is dichloroisoproterenol, where the hydroxy groups were replaced by chlorine. So this is the first molecule where they found very good beta blockade activity. So that and further synthesis by replacing benzene with naphthalene, they got pronitholol, one of the first agents used as beta blockers, but it is not a beta selective blocker. It has intrinsic activity also is there, so it is not so efficient. But later on, scientists synthesized with a slight modification propranolol. So the propranolol became the first selective beta blocker. Okay, so in the receptors alpha and beta, it is selective to beta. So it has very less alpha adrenergic blockade activity. So propranolol was actually synthesized by Sir James W. Black, and he also discovered cimetidine, anti-ulcer drug. So for his contributions towards understanding and therapeutic application of beta adrenergic antagonists, he was awarded Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1988. So here we have because after that hundreds of molecules were synthesized and studied for beta adrenergic antagonistic activity. So here is the structure activity relationships of beta 1 adrenergic antagonists. Now let's see one by one. So one of the prominent changes that we have seen between promethanol and propranolol is the connectivity X. So when connectivity changes from CH2 to methyl and ether, here just like we have seen in case of promethanol and propranolol, it enhanced beta selectivity. So here this type of drugs are what we call them as aryl ethanolamines, and this is aryl oxypropanolamines. So these are aryl oxypropanolamines. Here you also can see a small change. So here we have substitution on the second position of naphthalene, whereas in case of propranolol it changed to first position over here. But scientists, when they were observing the computational models of these two agents, there is a significant overlap of all the remaining region. Even though they changed from here to here, the added OCH2 part has actually remained, retained fitment of the compound or the chain in the receptor pocket. So in that way, propranolol has with this same chain is fitting into the receptor pocket, but elongated chain made this aryl part fitting into receptor pocket more efficiently, so thereby it enhanced beta adrenergic selectivity. So the hydroxy group that we have over here, in case of all adrenergic agents, it must be R minus isomer. The next observation is on the substitution on amine part. Here instead of in case of agonists we have isopropyl unit, we also can have tertiary butyl unit, like we have seen in case of propranolol and nadolol. Here if you closely observe, on nitrogen we have a bulky substitution, and if we go further, labetalol or carvedilol, you can see even bigger substitutions still retaining their activity. As we have seen in case of beta agonists like salbutamol, beta receptor has a bigger pocket and a lot flexibility is there, which can accommodate larger substitutions on nitrogen, whereas in case of alpha, if you can remember, the receptor pocket is rather small and highly sensitive to steric hindrances. So this is the way how beta receptor selectivity can be achieved. Here one more observation is, whenever we have methyl substitution on alpha carbon, it always helps in inhibiting MAO receptor 1. The second one is it will have alpha adrenergic activity also. So labetalol and carvedilol both are having alpha adrenergic activity, where in case of labetalol, alpha adrenergic alpha blockade is a little bit more pronounced. The next one is on the aromatic ring. So what type of aromatic rings can help us in getting beta adrenergic antagonists? So these are the examples of beta selective antagonist agents. Here if you observe, on the aromatic rings we have a benzene, substituted benzenes are there, and then benzene with dihydronaphthalene ring is also there, naphthalene rings are there, indoles are there, and heterocyclic rings are there. So it shows that beta receptor pocket is highly flexible and all types of aromatic rings can fit into that. There is no specificity. We can have bigger aromatic rings. But one more observation is, in case of selective beta blockers, see if you observe all these rings, these are all aryl oxypropanolamines. So in case of aryl oxypropanolamines, always the para position is occupied. So in all these, acetbutyl, etenolol, betaxolol, esmolol, metoprolol, bisoprolol, in all these are all aryl oxypropanolamines where the fourth position we have a substitution, means para substituted. 4-aryl oxypropanolamines, because here we have a substitution on fourth position, is what exactly is enhancing beta 1 selectivity. So in the remaining, in all the remaining, we have substitutions at different other positions. Let's see some of the drug molecules that are there in beta blockers. The first example is propranolol. This is one of the first beta blocker approved for activity. So though it is non-selective beta blocker, but its beta 1 selectivity, beta 1 receptor activity is more than beta 2 activity. So what happens if you block beta 2 receptor? Because beta 2 receptors are there in pulmonary tissue, beta 1 and beta 2 activation gives you opposite reactions. Beta 1 receptor is an activating receptor, beta 2 receptor is an inhibitory receptor. So that's why in beta 1 activity, muscle contraction will be there. In case of beta 2, muscle relaxation will be there. So in non-selective beta blockade, though we are looking for reduced cardiac pumping activity, cardiac output, so this also gives us muscle contraction in pulmonary tissue. So it will precipitate if any asthmatic kind of condition is there, or it itself will generate asthma like condition. So that's why non-selective beta blockers are not very popular. Okay, etenolol and acetbutyl. So these are some of the examples of first beta 1 selective blockers approved for in the market. Acetbutyl was approved in 1973 and etenolol close to 1975. Now, once after the approval of after entry of these drugs in the market, propranolol became an obsolete drug. It was replaced by these two drugs. Etenolol is still there in the market, 1820, 1850. These are the two very popular drugs available in the market. These are first selective beta blockers that are available in the market. It is used for hypertension, acute myocardial ischemia, tachycardia. These are three diseases where for their management etenolol is used. In case of acetbutyl, it is relatively more selective towards beta 1 when you compare it with etenolol. So that's why very less pulmonary side effects will be there. It is also used for the same kind of conditions like hypertension, acute myocardial ischemia, tachycardia. Pindalol, cartilol and acetbutyl. So why am I showing all these three drugs? So in case of adrenergic antagonists, there is one typical issue will be there. Drugs having intrinsic activity. So they themselves will have a little bit of receptor activity, where pindalol has highest intrinsic activity. Though it is beta blocker, it also will have agonistic activity. Okay, so pindalol has more intrinsic activity rather than cartilol and acetbutyl. Okay, so among these three, pindalol has, if you wanted to compare, pindalol is 3 to 4 times more potent as an intrinsic agent, have 3 to 4 times more intrinsic activity rather than acetbutyl. Another two agents that we have in adrenergic antagonistic activity is labetalol and carvedilol. So these two are examples for non-selective adrenergic blockers, means they block both alpha receptor as well as beta receptor. If you closely observe these structures, in case of labetalol, now it has the alpha methyl group. As I told you earlier also, it will have alpha adrenergic activity because of this. In case of carvedilol, we have a very large aromatic ring is there. alpha 1, beta 1 and beta 2 receptors are blocked by these agents. And carvedilol is more selective towards beta receptor, as I told you, because in case of benzene aromatic ring, bigger the ring, more selectivity will be there for beta receptor activity. These are used for heart failure and in emergency medicine only. So friends, with this I conclude my today's lecture. Today's lecture we have seen the classification of adrenergic antagonists and evaluation of beta 1 receptor or beta blockers, and we also have seen some of the therapeutic indications for structures as well as therapeutic indications, and a little bit of chemistry on selective drug molecules. So in the next class we will see alpha adrenergic blockers and their chemistry. So friends, thank you all for your patient listening, and see you again in my next lecture. Thank you.